Welcome everyone, my name is Chris and this channel will be all about watercolor painting. I've been painting with watercolors on and off for over 20 years now and I'd love to share with you everything that I've learned. This video is more of a introduction and then we'll get into the more tutorial based videos later. Alright, let's start by getting out some paper, some tape and some scissors. I'm going to put a nice clean white border around this paper. So we just want to get that tape going all around the borders. We're planning on painting a full coloured background, so this will look quite nice when it's exposed later. Okay, now we've got our borders on, let's get into the sketch, and today I've decided to draw a grouper fish. It's my favourite fish. There's many different species, different colours. You know, you've got things like your giant groper, your Atlantic Goliath groper, red groper, the brown marbled groper, the creepy groper down the street. Yeah, so hopefully that's not true for you, but yeah, there's many different types and this one is no one in particular. I feel it's a very prehistoric looking fish. It's very mysterious, majestic, beautiful. What more could you want, really? It's just a great subject matter. Whether you're practicing some new techniques or you want to lay out some different color schemes you haven't played around with before, it's just a great place to start. This is the first drawing I've done in about 6 months, so the muscle memory is kicking in. I'm rocking the old mechanical pencil, the 2B graphite inside. I wouldn't go anything harder than 2B, otherwise you're going to run the risk of gouging your paper. One thing I will note is once you've finished your masterpiece, your drawing, keep in mind that as soon as a watercolor wash goes over the top of that graphite, you're effectively going to be sealing it in. So try not to make your lines too bold, especially on areas that you're planning on keeping quite light. Maybe they only have 1 or 2 washes over them. So what I like to do is once I've finished my drawing, I just get a kneadable eraser and then I just sort of blot it over any areas that I've made too dark or I just want to bring back a bit, just enough so you can still see where your border lines are. Okay, now that we're getting close to finishing the texture, we're going to get stuck into some masking and we'll go over techniques and tools and everything that's involved with masking in a later video in more depth, but it's pretty straightforward. You pretty much just want to lay out the masking over any areas that you want to remain white. I certainly wouldn't be going and putting masking fluid on the entire fin or the whole background, anything like that, because you will destroy your paper. It's really effective for small areas, but there's certainly other ways, better ways that you can block out bigger areas that are going to give you a far better outcome. All the masking is now finished, so we're going to select a couple of colors for the background. These are going to be our base colors and then we're going to build everything on top of these. At this point I hadn't really decided what colors I wanted to do. I've gone with an orange and purple sort of color scheme. I usually use tube paints for big washed areas. It's just very time consuming to try and pull the paint from your pans for these bigger areas, especially when you have a big broad brush like this one. As we mix these paints up and apply the wash, we're just going to talk about this channel and what it's going to consist of. It's going to be showing different techniques, equipment, tricks, everything you need to know, and definitely some interesting projects and ideas that you can follow along and level up your skills. It's going to be predominantly watercolor, but definitely some crossovers into other mediums. I've done a lot of work with all sorts of different mediums, watercolor being my favorite and one that this channel is going to be mostly showcasing, and also some more exclusive content available for people that want to learn even more. There'll be more about this in later videos, but if it sounds like something that is of interest to you, then definitely subscribe. Just finishing up the first wash here. This is my favourite paint set. As you can see, a lot of my studio is stuff from IKEA. It's very functional, quite cheap. You're not too worried if you're going to get all paint and destroy the surface, so it's good like that. So here we're just putting in some shadow work, quite basic sort of shadowing, light source from above. It's probably one of the best things and most helpful tools is your hairdryer. Cheap, probably $12 hairdryer you can pick them up for. Just saves a lot of time in between washes. Taking the time to dry the layers in between, it's actually very valuable. You can be sort of impatient and want to just jump to the next stage, but if your paint's not fully dry, then you're going to come into a whole lot of issues. Probably one of the best things about watercolor is how quickly the paints do dry. Nice close up here of the details. At this stage there's a few more steps there that haven't been shown, but we can go into more detail with those in another video. Now we're just going to be putting over a really heavy wash. This is really defining the shadows. And then that looks extremely bold, but that's going to dry and be a lot lighter. That quill brush is holding a lot of water, so once that absorbs into the paper and evaporates off, it's going to be quite pale. Intensity won't be there. But you do definitely want to work quite quickly if you want a nice even finish. On this one it doesn't really matter because I'm planning on putting some texture into that background. But as you can see on that left hand side, it had already started to dry and I've gone over it again there. But if you wanted a nice smooth finish, you would have been reactivating paint that's too dry, and then that's where you get all your random textures and bleeding happening. Just come back in here with some water and you can see that's what I was talking about with the bleeding. But if that's your desired effect, then perfect. And I'm just pulling away some paint, just using a paper towel. It's one of the great and exciting techniques you can do with watercolors, is pull back some of the paint. Nothing is really final with watercolor. If something's too bold or you made a mistake, you can pull it back a bit. Definitely your paper plays a big role in that. If you have quite a cheap sort of paper, something that maybe isn't a cotton fibre, you will eat away at your paper every time you pull back paint. So we're just mixing up some really vibrant colours to go in those exposed areas that the masking fluid was on. And we're not mixing too many colours within each, 1 or 2 at the most, and then we're just going to be washing it over. As you can see, I'm not being too careful. I'm sort of taking that paint over what is already there, and that's actually pulling some of the colour, some of that orange and purple through the white. But that's fine, that's just giving you more of an even look, and then you'll come back in later and with that same blue make it a little bit more intense, more pigment, and then just fill in just the white areas. Same with that yellow wash, complements the orange quite well. You can see there it's dried back a bit, and that was that step I talked about where I came back in and added the blue in each one of those mist shapes, those little blob things. Okay, you can see there there's a few steps there that weren't shown, where I was going back in and doing some more of the detailing. As we talked about before, pulling back the paint, you can see I've pulled back some of those little dots on the underside of the fish. Just subtle, because I'm planning on putting as the final layer some really crisp white Indian ink dots on the top. Okay, now we've got our ink just covering all of the top surface of the fish, just with these little dots, trying to not be too uniformed with them, you know, some slightly larger than the others, but still very fine. They sort of just set back and complement those little dots on the underside that we pulled back earlier. And that final dot for the eye draws your eye towards that section. And there we have it, all finished. Gonna have a go here, pulling off the tape. I'm holding the camera there, so it's a little bit more difficult than usual. Here we're just pulling off the tape. I can show you how to get that beautiful crisp clean white border, how you tape that up properly. What you don't want to do is what I've done there. My sweaty hot hands have reactivated the paint that was on the tape, and I've made those little blotches, but they're easily removed. And there it is, the final piece, and you can see that I've removed that paint that I touched on that border. Thank you to everyone that stuck around till the end. This has been a bit of an intro to what is to come, and if you've enjoyed it, please catch me on the next one. Until then, thank you very much.